Hey there, winners. Welcome back to the Winning Play Podcast. I'm Drew James here with my co-host Robb Hue. We're here to break down Week 4 waiver wire for you. A lot of guys get injured. We got to look for people to pick up. Robb, let's start off. You've got a wide receiver down. Which wide receivers are you looking at to grab tonight on the waiver wire?
Yeah, so this waiver wire I think is a little bit deeper than some of these other weeks, but you got to go with the week winner, Jawan Jennings. You know, some might say the real JJ last week. 46.5 points, which by the way would be more than Debo or Brandon Ayuk has ever had in their career. Week winner. I'm not sure about his long term, but I do think that Debo and Kittle are going to be out for another week. So Jawan's definitely a must start in that case. How about you, man? Who's your top wide receiver pickup?
I like Jawan Jennings, like you said. I don't know when Debo and I come back. Is he going to be this? And Kittle, how much of a look he's going to get? But at least for this week, you want to have Jawan Jennings, a guy who's looking pretty consistent though so far year long would be Wendell Robinson. He hasn't blown the doors off and scored 46 points yet, but he's had 6 to 7 catches in 2 of their games. In one game, he didn't get more than 10 targets. He had a touchdown. He's averaging 10 points a game. Again, he's not going to be your league winner, but he's definitely a solid streaming fill-in or flex play if you're down some guys like I know I am. And then another guy that we saw Thursday night is Allen Lazard, who I think has been brought to New York because he's one of Aaron Rodgers' favorite targets. A-Rod trusts him. We saw him come up with big plays Thursday night, so I think A-Rod's going to keep looking to him more and more. He may be more of a touchdown-dependent play, but I do think he's going to be there all year for Aaron Rodgers to lean on.
Yeah, I like Lazard for sure in the short term. Like you said, touchdown dependent, and I think as Garrett Wilson and don't forget Mike Williams get worked more into the offense, I am worried about his long term. A guy definitely in the short term that I like as well in the wide receiver a little bit deeper is Jahan Dotson. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are most likely going to be gone from the Eagles this week. They play the Bucs. They're going to need at least somebody. So there's one other receiving weapon we'll get to later on the waiver wire for them, but Jahan Dotson has to be considered up here, along with Jalen Naylor, right? Number 83 for the Vikings. Until Addison gets back, Darnold's throwing that thing all over the yard. So someone's got to get it besides Justin Jefferson. Last week, Justin had all of his points in the first half, and then it was the Darnold show. And Naylor actually almost had another touchdown as well as his first one. So those are, I think that wraps up our wide receivers pretty well. Who are you looking at for running backs?
I mean, right now I feel like it comes down to 2 guys, Braylon Allen and Bucky Irving. Both guys look really great. I think the difference being Braylon Allen looks like he's going to continue to carries all year. He's definitely not going to take the job from Breece Hall, but he might be able to work his way into a split, and he's still getting 15, 16 touches right now. Bucky Irving, on the other hand, isn't getting the touches he should be getting, but it's hard to watch and not believe that he's going to take that job from Rachaad White. Now, you're a Bucs guy, so maybe you have a better read on that situation and which one you like more.
So as a waiver wire pickup, I like Bucky slightly over Braylon. I think the opportunity is there for more snap share. And Todd Bowles came out and said he's earned more snaps, and that's absolutely true. If we're talking about in a vacuum, who's the better football player, and also who, if the lead back were to go down, who would have the best opportunity, it's Braylon. He's got the body to be a workhorse. And Bucky, I think, can outperform or is more durable than his size shows, but Braylon is that guy. So I would pick Bucky first and then Braylon second in the waiver wire just because this is fantasy football. But another guy in a split backfield that I think you have to consider is Emmanuel Wilson. A little bit of his usage last week was because, Matt LaFleur has always come out and said, I want to do a running back by committee. And that wasn't really the case the first couple weeks. And I think that they had a hold on that game. So Emmanuel Wilson, they wanted to give Josh Jacobs a breather, and he had a little bit of a down week. I think that Josh Jacobs is not in any danger of losing the majority of snaps, but Emmanuel Wilson's going to get a lot of play in this offense. You can't go back years in LaFleur's tendencies to kind of split those snaps and think he's going to do anything different. And he looked great, at least in the receiving game. So I like
He
Emmanuel
had
Wilson as
14.
well.
He had 14 touches this week, and I agree. Like you said, the Packers have a history of producing two fantasy-worthy running backs. I like that one. What about a deep sleeper running back or somebody people might not have on their radar yet?
I've got a deep pull for the running back. It's going to be Tyler Badier. Now, I mean, it kind of what's going on right now. I said it like that because I want to give him a little bit of grace because what's going on right now is everyone's calling him Tyler Bidet.
I like
They're
that.
saying he's making a big splash, all that stuff.
Oh,
But I will say, he looks like the best running back on the Broncos roster right now. Javonte and Jaleel have been extremely disappointing. I was a Javonte guy coming out in the draft, so it's a little sad to see, even after injury and recovery in a year in between, that he hasn't been that guy. I mean, he had these monstrous dominator stats in college for breaking tackles and doing all that, and we just haven't seen that guy. So Tyler Batty, he actually reached 20.99 miles per hour on one of his runs against the Bucks. That's a very high top speed. So I like him as a very deep play. He's more of a stash guy. You have no idea what work he's going to get next week or moving forward. But I can see Sean Payton yanking Javonte in place of this guy if he shows some more juice like that.
got you, man. I love it. He's one you put me on to, so I'm actually excited to kind of get out there and see where I can snag him.
Definitely.
Moving on to the tight ends. What about another Jets guy that we saw play Thursday night, Tyler Conklin? Uh, I don't think he's really on a lot of people's radar, but he looked pretty good, and A-Rod looks like he trusts him.
Yeah, Conklin was actually, even going into drafts, if I didn't leave with one of those, now the tight end landscape has been an absolute wasteland this year, but going
Yeah.
into the drafts, we all kind of had a pretty consensus top 5 to top 7. So if I didn't get one of those guys in the draft, Conklin was
Or if you
actually
did
with
and his name was Mark Andrews.
oh, yeah. Conklin was actually a guy that I was going to get at the bottom of drafts just because I was thinking A-Rod, tight ends. I was thinking he would get it, and I think their relationship is growing. He looked great in this game last week, and I was telling you a little bit off screen that I love the juice that he looked like he had after he had the ball in his hands. So I think that relationship's only going to grow. So I love Tyler Conklin as a later guy, but he may not be the top waiver wire tight end. If you were to say who your waiver wire top tight end was, who would you go with?
Maybe Cole Kmet, I guess. Like you said, it's hard in a situation where it's such a wasteland. But I'd say Cole Kmet as far as guys that aren't rostered. The Bears seem like they're going to be in some shootouts. They're going to throw the ball. He had, I think 10 for 97 this week and a touch. He's not going to do that every week, but I do think he's going to be involved weekly, and you have a chance for him to at least be getting 5 to 10 targets, which, again, at the position this year, that's kind of the most you could hope for.
Absolutely. I think I'm a little lower on Komet. I think that it's going to be hard to chase those points. And, Rome has arrived, or at least looked like he arrived this week. And Keenan's been dealing with the injuries. When he comes back, I just think there's a little bit too many mouths to feed with a rookie quarterback that, even though he ended up with like 363 yards, I mean, his passes were all over the place. His decisions weren't good if you watch that game. He was kind of like taking harder
Oh, his offensive
passes when
line is horrible. Yeah.
Totally, totally. But all that speaks to kind of a slightly dysfunctional offense still. So, and then the elephant in the room, the other guy who performed super well, that's on a lot of rosters, but if he's not, I mean, you better go pick him up. I talked about Jahan Dotson on this depleted Eagles receiving weapon core, but I mean, it's got to be Dallas Goedert if he's out there. You got to go pick him up. I mean, he'll
I
be a
mean,
huge part of this offense.
say he's rostered in 93% of leagues, so
Oh,
you
okay,
have
okay.
trouble
Well,
picking him up. But
those 7%
he,
that are listening better go pick him up.
and if you've got him, play him. I'd agree with
Oh
you on
yeah.
that. What about let's move on to the quarterback position. Another one where you've got some guys. Patrick Mahomes is no longer looking like he's fulfilling his draft capital. Like, he doesn't look like a top 3 quarterback anymore. I think it's been 17 games since he scored more than 20 points in 4-point passing leagues. If you're struggling at quarterback, who are some streaming guys you can pick up? Is there anybody that's going to last all season? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, as a Patrick Mahomes owner in a league, it's tough. You want to give the best quarterback in the league the benefit of the doubt, but it's just not how their offense has been working for the last 2 years. The guy you got to go for is Sam Darnold. This guy's throwing it all over the yard, and more than just him and his resurgence, I love what Kevin O'Connell has been doing on that offense, and their team makeup is set up for sustained success. They have one of the top tier tackle duos in the league, so that's good protection for Darnold. Aaron Jones is a very capable running back, both in the pass and the catch. He happens to have the best wide receiver in the league as well. And we're talking about a team that's still missing Jordan Addison and Tyler Hawkinson. So waiver wire, even long term, if you got an injured QB, or even if you're starting a waiver on Patrick Mahomes, something like that, it's definitely worth, as a rest of season waiver wire, to look at Sam Darnold.
I'm gonna debate you on this one. My take on Darnold, I think he's one everybody's gonna overreact to this week. He had 4 touchdowns and no picks. That's gonna score you a bunch of points. If you break down the stats, though, he still only threw for 180 yards, and he never runs the ball. So with Darnold, I feel like this is the greatest game he's ever gonna have, and he might continue to have a good season. But I don't think he's gonna be putting up a 4 touchdown, no interception performance every week. A guy that I would look at in exchange, who obviously isn't on as good of a team, isn't having as great of a season you would think, but fantasy-wise, is Bo Nix on the Broncos. He's still a rookie. He's getting it together. Did throw the ball 36 times this week for over 200 yards, but he also had 9 carries for 50 yards and a touchdown. And I like the running quarterbacks. That's why I drafted Jaden Daniels in 3 leagues. A quarterback who's going to get you 9 carries or 50 yards covers up so many other deficiencies if he's going to throw 2 picks, which he might. So I'd say not as good of a quarterback, but a fantasy play, I'd take Bo Nix over Darnold this week. What about any other guys you got?
Well, when it comes to QB waivers, there's not going to be a Jaden Daniels that looked amazing, or a lot of these running guys. If Justin Fields is out there, you got to love his running capabilities, but all that you're kind of left with are pocket passers. So I love Sam Darnold only because he's had 3 weeks now of it, and their offense doesn't look like a fluke at all. Plus, they have receiving weapons coming back. So, but another guy I like in the pocket is A-Rod. I mean, he looked terrible first week, but this offense looks like it is coming together like you would expect a guy that didn't have a deep offseason and also hasn't had a lot of time to gel with this team. So they got Mike Williams they're going to be incorporating in. Conklin's coming on. And then the Garrett Wilson connection can only go up because it doesn't look spectacular right now. But we all have faith in his talent, and we know what even older Rodgers can do. So I like that offense to start humming, start gelling. And even if he doesn't have the rushing upside, we're not talking about maybe a 30-point ceiling for Aaron Rodgers. But I think, when we're talking about waiver wire QBs, I think he's absolutely up there.
And I will say he took off a couple times this week. He did have a few rushes in there on Thursday night, which is
He did.
good to see.
He looked spry for an old man. Yeah, he did.
I got one more guy. I know nobody's really talking about him yet, but he could be one of these running quarterback options. Is Tyler Huntley, who the Dolphins have just named this will start this week. If he plays well, Tua may be out. Who knows how long? You could be picking up a starter on what last year was a good offense, but again, historically, he's been a guy that can run the ball. If McDaniels can scheme a way to get him carries, whether or not that team starts winning, I do think he could be at least a streaming candidate of like, oh, he might get you 15 points on any given Sunday. And he's also a deep pick. I don't think anybody's going to be grabbing him, so you can kind of get him without spending much of your fab budget, which is nice for a second QB, depending on your situation. That all being said, we covered all the positions. Let's go ahead. We talk about fab budget. Everybody has to decide how much we're going to spend or who we're going to prioritize. Give me your top 5 and, give me your list of which guys you're going for over who, so people kind of know which way to lean here.
So my top 5 isn't really linked to how much fab, because for some of these guys, it's more about a short-term investment. And then in that case, I'm not burning my fab on this or a waiver priority if you have it. But I mean, number one's got to be Jawan Jennings. I still would only use maybe 10% of my budget on it. I'm not doing that because I'm not looking at him for a rest of season. But it's got to be number 1, Jawan Jennings. And then it's got to be number 2, Bucky Irving for me. He is a rest of season guy for me. So if you're hurting at the running back, but at the same time, you don't need someone right away this week, but Or maybe you are just looking for trophy aspirations and you want a second half guy that can take you there. He's absolutely worth more of a fab dump. I think that he absolutely, if you can manage it and you don't think you're gonna need that fab for the rest of it, if you want a stash guy, Bucky, and following that, Braylon number 3, both of those guys are worth a little bit more than maybe they can give you in these next coming weeks. Number 4, I would probably put Tyler Conklin. I do think that the tight end's been a wasteland, and I think a lot of people are gonna need tight ends there. So he's definitely worth something like that. And then I mean, I know you weren't high on him, but Sam Darnold. I think we're all looking for a steady quarterback, and I only see up on that guy for number 5.
I'd say it's not that I'm not high on Sam Darnold, but I feel like people are going to overreact to this week and outspend me on Sam
Sure.
Darnold would be my
Sure.
take. I'd go, let's see, number 1, I'm going to go Juwan, especially it always
Gotcha.
depends on your roster makeup, but number 2, I'm going to go Braylon on the Jets, just because I think he's going to see that workload, and heaven forbid Breece Hall goes down, he's a top 10 running back all of a sudden. Then number 3, I'll go Bucky. Number 4, I'm going to say Alan Lazard. And then number 5, Wendell Robinson. So 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs. Again, it depends on your roster needs, but that's where I'd lay him out.
I like the shout out to Wandale because he would have been number 5 or number 6 for me too.
I love it. Well, winners, thank you for tuning in. This is our weekly waiver wire preview. Make sure you get your claims in tonight. Don't be that guy that I've been way too many times that wakes up on Wednesday morning and forgot and gets nobody and your team is hamstrung. Put them in early. Come back here later this week for our full week 4 preview. And for Rob Hue and Drew James, have a great week.